Hotels in the United States of America are weird. You might pay $200 a night and get a clean room, great sleep, and a surprisingly good breakfast. Or you might get cockroaches, a broken toilet, and paper-thin walls. So I decided to find out which US hotel chains you can actually trust and which ones just look good in stock photos. To do proper research, I stayed at 4 of the most popular mid-range hotel chains in the US. A Holiday Inn Express, which is a brand of IHG, a Hyatt Place, a Hampton Inn by Hilton, and a TownPlace Suites by Marriott. And I rated each stay using 5 real-world categories that actually matter when you're traveling: comfort, service, room and facilities, breakfast, and value for price. At the end, we'll tally each hotel's score up, see how they ranked, and determine which one might actually make sense to stay at. Today, I'm staying over at a Holiday Inn Express. Technically, it's called the Holiday Inn Express Boston Logan Airport, but the thing is, it's quite far from the airport. Luckily, they do have a free airport shuttle that you can request, but otherwise you'd be walking for like over an hour to get to the airport from here. So it's kind of weird that they even can put the airport in their name. While this was one of the only decent deals I could really find, I paid a little bit over 30,000 IHG points plus $36 just to buy the points I didn't have. The amount of IHG points it cost me to stay here would probably get me at least 5 nights somewhere else in the world, but you know, I wanted to be in Boston. I'd never been to the city before, and it was kind of interesting to check out. But let's see what the room is like here. Sometimes in the United States of America, chain hotels can be kind of disappointing, but this one seems to be pretty okay. Got 2 queen beds because the king bed points redemption was just all booked up, but if you were like 2 couples staying here, you could stay here for the same price, I guess, because these queen beds seem like real queen beds, pretty big. You get 1 soft pillow, 1 firm pillow. I like that about IHG or Holiday Inn hotels in particular. They have pretty much always these 2 pillow options. But here next to the bed, there is this iHome with a charger that supposedly, oh yeah, it works. And then there's a phone right here. And that's about it. It's not really an outdated hotel. Actually, it seems kind of new, but there doesn't seem to be any USB around in the hotel, which is kind of strange. You would expect to have that here, but I guess they don't have it. And then there's this Keurig coffee machine. Other than that, this is not like a super large room by American standards at all. So instead of a closet, you've got this kind of area. There's also a safe and some drawers here. See if there's anything in here. I don't think so. And if you want to iron your clothes, they do have an iron, which is a nice touch. There's the bathroom in here. It's really your typical American hotel bathroom, I guess. Definitely not a motel. Doesn't feel like that. No bathtub though, but there is Dove amenities all over the place. I guess that's nice. So that's what you get staying at a Holiday Inn Express in the United States. So after a walk around, the room seemed pretty solid, and the rest of the hotel looked well maintained too, even offering shared spaces such as a gym and a pool. But sometimes the first impression doesn't uncover the reality of a hotel, and I was about to find out exactly why. Let's fast forward to the next morning and see how it really went. Well, good morning. So, the Holiday Inn Express Boston Logan Airport. The Holiday Inn Express Boston Logan Airport was not a good place to sleep last night. There are a lot of reasons that we have to go over here. But first, let me get my very tired self up and do this properly. And before I do any of the complaining that I'm about to do about the terrible night's sleep experience, do note that there's a kind of cool view here. But unfortunately, what definitely was not kind of cool was the amount of times that I was awoken last night by a lot of different things. First off, there's the way they've got the heating and air conditioning set up in this room. There's this thing, which I'm gonna put off right now or else it's gonna pop on randomly and quite loudly and disturb me recording this video for you. So every so now and then the heater has to come back on just to maintain the temperature, and I was sleeping in this bed right here, meaning I was being blown with this kind of hot air randomly, and it got really dry in the room as well. So the heating setup, and I guess the air conditioning setup too in the summer, is really not ideal in my opinion, but this is quite standard across the United States of America in many, many hotels. But the first really big problem that has to be pointed out here is that this smoke detector is blinking about every 30 seconds. 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So I suppose there technically is still a remedy to that situation. You could cover your eyes with the sheet, which is less than ideal, or wear some kind of eye cover, you know, like what you might have on an airplane. But the fun did not stop there last night. And trust me, I was awake for most of it. See, when I was awoken around 11 p.m., about 2 hours after falling asleep, around 9 p.m., I turned this thing off, and then I started to hear some very, very, very loud sounds from whoever was staying in the room above me, I believe, but it could be off to one of the sides as well. You know, like someone was like throwing rocks on the ground or something, but to be honest, I think the isolation in the hotel here is the issue. But the thing about that is that usually at any proper hotel, you can contact the front desk using the phone that they have in the room. You know, this kind of phone. But the thing about this phone is there's no way to contact the front desk with the phone here. So I looked up the hotel's number quickly, didn't take all that long, tried calling them, and I did get somebody from the front desk to answer. But when I finally got through, half awokenly explaining the situation of somebody making really loud noise that was waking me back up all the time, basically, the person on the other end of the line just hung up the phone. It seems like the only way to get in contact with the Holiday Inn Express when you have problems with something like very loud noise, for example, is to actually walk down to the desk yourself. By then it was after midnight and I was just not going to go put on all of my normal clothes and walk down to the desk. So the noises from the other room did continue off and on for a little bit, but eventually I fell asleep. Maybe it was like 1 or 2 a.m. I don't really know. But the thing is, there was another surprise that would wake me up before I could wake up at the time that I had planned to wake up at 7:30 a.m. Just going back over here to the bed to show you something. Well, it's something pretty normal in a hotel. It's an alarm clock. But the thing about this alarm clock is that somebody set this alarm clock for 4:30 a.m. I don't know why it's beeping now. And it was set for 4:30 a.m. when I came here. And the thing is, I don't check alarm clocks when I go into a hotel room. Maybe I need to do that, I don't know. So at 4:30 a.m., I was abruptly awoken by an alarm clock that I did not set myself. And I mean, it was obviously inconsiderate for the person staying in this room before to have left the alarm clock set, but I do think it's probably something that housekeeping should always be looking at as well. They obviously didn't look at that. So 4:30 a.m., around 5:30 a.m., I was back asleep, and then the loud noises from above started a little bit again, and I think about 6:30 a.m. I was back awake. So this Holiday Inn Express, for me at least, in my experience, was not a place that you go when you want to get a nice night's sleep. But while I'm here, there is still free breakfast at this hotel, so I'm gonna go down and check that out, and that'll be the last chance for this hotel to kind of redeem itself, although the thing is I'm gonna be tired today no matter what as a result of staying here. So, what's Holiday Inn Express breakfast like these days? So this definitely is not the worst American breakfast I've ever seen in my life. You got some oatmeal. Things look clean. The people working here are nice as well. Strawberries, that's a nice touch. Boiled eggs, green sauce, like salsa. And then some potatoes, I think I'll eat some of those with some salsa, pancake, mystery meat sausages. Oh no, sorry, not mystery, pork, and cheese omelet that I missed. And then you've got these from concentrate juices available. Not perfect, but for a Holiday Inn Express, I think that's kind of acceptable. Then of course there is coffee. So, that breakfast was really not all that bad at all for an American hotel breakfast. But the ordeal with not being able to sleep in a hotel with a place where you go to sleep, it's not really ideal. Let's put it that way. And although the staff I dealt with at check-in and at breakfast were kind and helpful, the person who checked my wife and I out seemed completely disinterested in how our stay had gone. But as far as seeing how this Holiday Inn stacks up next to a Hilton, a Marriott, and a Hyatt hotel, it's gonna be a pretty tough competition for them, because when you don't sleep well in a hotel, it's just not a good stay. No matter how good the breakfast is, or how nice the people working there are when you can actually have a conversation with them. But on that note, it's just about time for me to catch my flight down to Houston. So let's go see what this Hyatt place down there is like to stay at. Well, hello, Texas. I just got off my 3-hour, 37-minute flight on United, which was actually relatively solid for being a basic economy flight. But that first Holiday Inn Express really did disappoint me with the fact that I just couldn't sleep there. Like, I am just so tired. But I definitely got a really solid deal at this hotel. A lot better than that last IHG hotel, to be honest. Since this Hyatt place is what Hyatt categorizes as a Category 1 hotel, it only cost me 3,500 Hyatt points per night. As far as hotel deals in the US goes, this is one of the absolute best deals you can get in the country. In the past, I've used this same kind of Hyatt deal to be able to stay in other expensive places too, like Dubai. But let's see what the room's like over here in Houston. The bed seems like really nice. Like, I think I'm gonna sleep here as long as there's no strange sounds. Though I do hear that this giant AC heating unit makes some relatively loud noise, so let's see how that goes. But it's quite spacious. It's probably not that much bigger in actual size compared to the Holiday Inn Express that I was at last night, but there's only this one king bed here. And then definitely a nice touch, in my opinion, is this sofa bed. And there's also this workspace, which is quite nice. Down here, there's some tea, coffee, that kind of stuff. Again, something similar to the Keurig machine. Not my favorite, but that's kind of what you get unless you're staying at like a more luxury geared hotel in the US. There's also lots of drawer space here. 2, 3, and a fridge. Pretty much standard stuff at a US hotel. Unlike that Holiday Inn Express though, there is a real closet. Also has an ironing board in it. And it's not like a brand new hotel or anything, but it has a nice feel to it. Oh yeah, and probably the most important thing after my experience yesterday is the fact that if I need to or want to, I can call the front desk. And then the room is equipped with basically a standard bathroom, walk-in shower, but no bathtub again. This looks pretty functional though. Gets your standard soap. Made in USA, that's kind of a nice touch. And then also some pretty cool amenities. I'm honestly not sure what this brand is, Kennett MD. But overall the room seems comfortable, well maintained, and clean. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect after looking on the Hyatt website. And good morning from Texas, where it's a lot warmer than it was in Boston. But this Hyatt bed was a lot better than that Holiday Inn Express bed, as was the whole experience sleeping here. There's just a little bit of noise from the street over there, but it was totally manageable with some earplugs. So let's head downstairs and see what's for breakfast. And this is the Hyatt breakfast room over here. They've got Danishes, so it's already better than the Holiday Inn Express. I'm seeing that much. And over here there's some eggs, some sausage, and some hash browns. All these sausages look way better than they had over there too. Love it. And I think that's already enough food for me, but otherwise you got some donut holes in here, bagels, all different kinds of stuff. Still for sure, not your like luxury American breakfast, but coffee. I mean, for mid-tier hotel breakfast in the US, this is pretty solid. Of course, there's not really a vegetable in sight, potatoes don't count, but the quality of what they do have for breakfast is notably decent. Well, that Hyatt breakfast was very satisfactory, I have to say. And this lobby is cool. So with a little time to spare before checking out, I thought I'd take a quick little tour of the building. And I really do not know what's up with the parking situation at this hotel because there are just empty lots all over the place surrounding it. It seems like this one is basically a part of the hotel, and this says Hyatt Place hotel parking only, but they made it very clear that you cannot park here for free or even park without using a valet service. So I guess it's just for the valet. Doesn't really make sense at this kind of hotel. It's not like a luxury or even upscale hotel. I mean, it is a nice place to stay as you've seen, but they could really just have free parking or like charge you $10 if they really insist on charging you some money to park. But on the same floor that's attached to that garage right there, there's supposed to also be a gym and a pool. So let's just take a look at what that looks like over here at this Hyatt. Maybe down this hallway. Oh wow, this is actually kind of nice. It's a very small pool, but it's outdoors. Anyway, over here is a gym. Nothing to write home about, I don't think. There's a few people in there, so not gonna bother going actually in there. But it's nice that they got the facilities if you want to use them. Well, I'm just about to check out, so that wraps it up for this Hyatt experience. I guess. It was actually pretty nice over here, I have to say. I feel very well rested and ready to go do the long drive over to northern Florida to show you a Hampton by Hilton right on the beach. So that'll be our next stop, and we'll be there in just a few seconds, but for me it'll be a few days. So, from a Holiday Inn Express over in Boston, down to a Hyatt Place in Houston. Now I've made my way over to northern Florida, around Fort Walton Beach, and I've checked in to this Hampton Inn by Hilton, of course. And the room is pretty spacious here. This one's got 2 queen beds, just cause that's what they had available for the way I booked this. Spending the night here cost me 31,000 Hilton Honors points, though there was a small surprise charge that we'll talk about in a minute. I don't know if I'd say it's quite as good of a deal as I got on the Hyatt, but it is definitely a better deal than I had on the Holiday Inn Express. Each of the deals that we're including in this video are all just the best deals that I could get for the specific night that I needed to stay in all of these places. But let's have a look around the room. The queen beds look pretty comfortable to me. Yeah, they feel about right for sleeping on. And this room could be used for up to 4 people. Over here, there's a typical American ice bucket and a nice table where you could work and an extra chair for sitting. That is a nice touch because often in these kind of mid-tier branded hotels, they'll only have 1 chair for sitting, but there'll be a room for at least 2 people or even 4 like this one, right? There's some nice space to set your bags. And of course, the TV has my name on it, which is a huge plus because, you know, people do like to be recognized. I'm half joking, but I'm half serious about it. And then the bedside table here is also good with 2 USBs and then 2 sockets. So pretty much a standard alarm clock that you find in a hotel like this these days, though older ones might not have those USB plugins. And a huge plus, again, this is not to be taken for granted. You can call the front desk. And actually, when I checked in, the lady checking me in just happened to be the general manager of this Hampton Inn, and she was quite adamant in saying give her a call or stop by the desk if I needed anything. Something that you should have in every hotel, even a non-mid-tier hotel, even like, I don't know, some lower Wyndham hotel that's not quite as nice as this one. You should still be able to call the front desk. But again, it's not always the case. Also, over here in this corner, you have a relatively large fridge. I mean, it's almost a full-size fridge actually. And then there's a microwave. That's always really nice to have. Not that I use microwaves all the time, but just the ability to heat something up and of course keep something you buy cold can save you money. Like you don't have to go to a restaurant necessarily, although I did just eat at the Waffle House and it was delicious. Also some coffee over here. I mean, this is just the reality in the United States of America. This is the kind of coffee you're gonna get in a hotel like this, no matter the brand. But it is cute. Kind of like in Japan, though a little bit more complicated looking. They give you coffee maker instructions. Insert, then fill up with water, then place coffee cup, and then press and release the start button. Cool. But here we are in the bathroom. Looks pretty okay. It's kind of shiny. This place looks, it doesn't feel dated, although it's not like a brand new hotel or anything. Zero is the brand that they've chosen for all of their amenities. Yep, or 0%. I don't know. How do you say that? You tell me in the comments how to say this brand. Anyway, I do like that it's made in the United States and you get a soap bar, body lotion, hand soap, shower gel, conditioner, and shampoo. And unlike our first two hotels, yep, this is a bathtub. You can take a bath here or you can take a shower. It's clean, it's got what you need, and the bathroom is a little bit chic, especially for a Hampton by Hilton. I wasn't expecting the bathroom to be so nice here. Really, the only thing here that I don't love, and something that we're not gonna take into our final score for each hotel, is the fact that I had to pay for parking. Almost all of the Hampton by Hiltons along this part of the Florida Panhandle, they all include free parking basically. I swear when I had checked online and I was doing my research, I was very careful to filter out any place that was charging for parking. But when I showed up here, the manager told me it's a $15 parking fee and that's what it is. I just stayed in New Orleans last night at another place. They would have charged me $55 a night for parking if I hadn't had a special deal. So parking is outrageously overpriced all throughout the United States of America, and when free parking is included in the hotel, that is really a big perk to consider. Moral of the story, just make sure that you know if there's a parking fee or not if you're gonna park. Tomorrow morning we'll see what the breakfast is like over here, and there's just one last thing to show you tonight. Out here is a pretty cool feature of this room. There's a balcony and a pool. Now this balcony has 2 seats, so that's a nice touch, but maybe 2 slight downsides would be that there's the smoking area right there. So if you're not a fan of the smell of whatever kind of smoke, this room might not be for you because it might seep in. I don't know. It depends if someone's standing there smoking or not. And the second one is that there's relatively loud music. In fact, it's so loud that you probably might hear it during the middle of the night, but I'll be testing that out. So in the morning, we won't just see what breakfast is like, but we'll also see if there's any interruptions here at night like there were over that Holiday Inn Express. But I'll see you all in the morning. Good morning. I'm just here drinking some of this almost coffee-like substance that they have in that machine over there and about to head down to breakfast. And I gotta say, I slept pretty well at this place. It was really quiet. The bed was soft, and yeah, I feel well rested, although I could sleep a little more. And the breakfast area over here is pretty nice, including some chargers. That must be common in the US these days. I don't see that in other countries. But here's the breakfast room. Good morning, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So Hampton Inn is synonymous with waffles. Although, of course, the Waffle House has the best waffles in the world. Hampton Inn does some pretty okay ones too. Except I don't know what's up with these sparkling strawberry Hampton waffle by Paris Hilton ones. Why don't we try one? Why not? I mean, gosh, if my family owned one of the world's biggest hotel chains, I'd also definitely have waffles named after me. There's a ton of pink food dye in this thing. I'm gonna regret eating it. Oh well. Yeah, these waffle makers have a timer for you, so it's pretty easy if you actually remember to set the timer, unlike I did. But it could be much worse. This is a close to perfect looking waffle. Might not be the best tasting waffle, we'll see in a minute, but it's the most beautiful waffle ever. Now if you're looking for like a really healthy hotel breakfast, they don't really have that here, but then again, they don't really have that in any of these kind of hotels in the United States. But they got some options. You got your bacon, your eggs, something called a bagel topper. Never even heard of that. It looks like half of a bagel with some cheese and maybe ham on top. And the coffee's hidden over around the corner somewhere. Coffee, even maybe 2 options of what kind of coffee you want to drink here. And otherwise, I would have to point out that most of the Hampton by Hiltons that I've stayed at in the US have pretty messy breakfasts, but this one's really clean. So that's definitely a plus. I mean, I don't know whose idea this was, but they forgot the strawberry part in the picture. It's super dry. It's actually not really very good. Take me back to the Waffle House. And I mean, these are your typical eggs from a carton or something. This is okay though. Oh wait, there's a glitter on my lens. And just for when Paris Hilton sees this video, I'm sorry to offend you, but this is the stupidest idea I've ever seen at a hotel breakfast. And although this video is not ranking these hotels based on their location, that's just not one of the factors that we're looking at here, because we're just looking at the chains, of course. But I'm on a beach. Over there is that Hampton Inn. And this beach is just right next door. It's a very good location, just in case you were thinking of staying here yourself. But seriously about that waffle, I have like glitter all over my shirt right now. I didn't intend for that to happen this morning, but oh well, thanks Paris Hilton. But just a little note on these Hampton Inns by Hilton, or as I've been calling it sometimes in this video, I think, Hampton by Hilton, just because in countries outside of the US, they're basically always branded as Hampton by Hilton, and then in the US, they're branded usually as Hampton Inns. So basically the same thing. Though I do have to say their breakfast over in Europe at the Hampton by Hiltons and in the Middle East are all significantly of higher quality than the ones you'll find in the US. But regardless, this has been a pretty solid stay over here. So I'm gonna head back in, get all my stuff, check out, and then we'll see what it's like to stay at a Marriott run property a little bit further south in Florida. And although normally people say save the best for last, after my long drive down south, I found myself confronted with something that many would consider a traveler's worst nightmare. Well, here I am in Titusville in Central Florida. And now that we've seen what it's like to stay at a Holiday Inn Express, a Hyatt Place, and a Hampton Inn by Hilton, it is time to check out a Marriott property. This is the TownPlace Suites in Titusville. Now, the first 3 properties that we checked out were all just standard hotels, but this is actually more of an apartment hotel. Instead of just a hotel room, you get a little suite with a full kitchen, basically. I mean, there's a small burner here. You've got your microwave oven. There's a dishwasher, plenty of drawers over here too, and there should be some cookware in them. Let's see, a cutting board, measuring cup, a pan, toaster, okay, all that kind of stuff. And if there's anything missing that you need, usually at these kind of hotels, you can just ask the front desk and they'll have it. But you can see I just checked in here, left my stuff, made a stop at Trader Joe's today too, so I've got some groceries, which is good, because there's everything I need to cook and all that kind of stuff. But I just noticed that there is a dirty cup left in the sink with lipstick on it. That is truly nasty. I didn't have any cleaning problems like that at any of the first 3 hotels. A little bit different because the other hotels had all these kind of cups, these plastic wrapped paper cups, and this has real cookware and all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice that they have that, but it's not all clean when you have that one dirty cup from God knows who sitting in the sink. Here, you've got a fridge, yep, and a freezer. This is a full-size fridge, so it really kind of feels homely in that sense that you got all that stuff here. And I could say, who knows who was drinking from that cup, but it doesn't even matter. It's like completely unacceptable for that to be in a room. Like, how do you forget that when you're cleaning the room? Unless the cleaning staff is just like super overworked here, possibly undertrained and that kind of stuff. So I hope I don't find any other signs of not good cleaning, but let's have a little bit of a look around the bedroom area. So the bed itself looks pretty nice, though it's way too soft for like, well, for anybody really. It's just like a marshmallow. And I noticed this weird thing just over here looking. I mean, it's not all that level. It just sinks in the middle, which is just not ideal for a mattress. I don't think it's gonna be a terrible mattress to sleep on, but it's too soft for the average person for sure. And hopefully there's no other issues with it. But otherwise, a huge positive here is that you can call the front desk if you need. There's a phone and it says front desk on a button, so I'm assuming that would work. Again, thanks Holiday Inn Express for making me check that every time, and let's just make sure the alarm's not on either. It's not. Plus you got USB ports and sockets, more USB ports down in the alarm on that side. And yeah, the room does feel relatively modern. I don't think this is like a brand new hotel or anything, but it doesn't feel worn out at all, except for that dirty cup. Oh yeah, and additionally, instead of having like a Keurig machine or something, they've got this stuff. What is it? Royal cup. There's also a pretty nice amount of seating between this sofa and the work chair and work desk over here, so that's cool. But I did notice that it's the same American style. Boy, oh my, why is that falling off? This thing is needs some love and affection. And as I'm walking around filming this clip in this room, I can hear sounds both from outside and from the neighbors, which is not really ideal. So the sound isolation is really not up to par, especially because we're right next to I-95, one of the busiest highways in the United States. And other than that, there's just a closet in this main room here. Let's see what's in there. Ah, my wife's jacket. And yeah, an ironing board. These bags are a nice touch too. Like, I would never pay to have my laundry done at a hotel, basically, unless I was in a country where it's really affordable at that particular hotel as well. But you can take these plastic bags for free. Great hack. Take them with you. Keep your dirty laundry in them or use them for something else. At least in my experience, those bags really always do come into use somewhere along any trip that I take. So that's about it for the room over here, but let's see what the bathroom's like here. Do keep in mind, that this is a little bit different than the other 3 hotels, just in the sense that it's that apartment style hotel. So a slightly more apples to apples comparison between like a Hampton Inn, a Holiday Inn Express, and a Hyatt Place would probably be a Fairfield Inn. But the thing is, over here, the Fairfield Inn had a terrible deal tonight. As a result of that, we just won't be considering the kitchen area when we're doing our final ranking and determining which hotel chain did the best. But this bathroom is definitely spacious enough. In the way of amenities, there's not really much to talk about. I mean, you've got your soap, conditioner, and shampoo, and these makeup removal things. They should really have lotion instead of that. Like, not every person is gonna use makeup remover wipes, but almost every person could use lotion. Just saying. And you got 2 sets of towels for 2 people, hair dryer. I think every hotel we looked at had one of those. That's just standard. And then, yeah, some drawers that actually are a little bit dirty. I would assume like 90% of the people that come here never open those drawers, to be honest. I probably wouldn't have if I wasn't making this video. This is possibly the ugliest piece of art that I've ever seen anywhere in any hotel, which is a pretty bold statement. Do something else, Marriott. What is this? Fantastic life in trends. What is this? I don't even know. And then the shower is with a little bit of an off-colored floor. Oh yeah, and like I was saying, it's shower gel over there and a bar of soap over here, but I guess the bar of soap is kind of intended to be for your hands more. I don't know. I'm just looking to see. Oh, it's made in the USA. At least it's domestically made. That's always a cool touch in a hotel anywhere. But yeah, these amenities are nothing to write home about. And as I step back out here into the room, I'm hearing like pretty loud sounds from the neighbors. So I'm gonna consider switching rooms, we'll see. But regardless, both the Hampton Inn and that Hyatt Place had better isolation. It's not as bad as the Holiday Inn Express was yet, but then again, it's still kind of early.
Thank you for, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second, I'll be right with you.
Okay, thanks. Maybe a more quiet room that we could, if the hotel's not super full, that we could switch to?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, cool.
Alright, if you just come down to the front desk, I can give you a new set of keys, okay?
Okay, so we'll take all of our stuff, we'll come down and get the key and give you the old key.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, see you in a minute, thanks, appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Hey, so I called up the front desk and verified that they have a lot of rooms open, even up on the 4th floor. So I'm gonna switch rooms, see if it's not a little bit quieter as well as cleaner up there. And my personal take on switching rooms is that you should always feel comfortable asking to switch to another room, but being very polite about it. And confirm, new room on the 4th floor. And this is the breakfast area that I just happen to be in. And there's also a pool down here, but okay, I've got the beach, so probably won't be messing with the pool. Okay, and I got my new room up here. And most importantly, there is no dirty cup in the sink, but everything else looks very similar except, actually, I think this room was like actually cleaned. And I just like this room a little bit more, if for no other reason than because my name is on the TV screen. But otherwise, I can definitely confirm that everything is exactly the same, including this really ugly art in the bathroom. Like really, exactly the intrinsic astic. What is this even like is? Well, 3rd time's the charm. Said nobody ever at a hotel when switching rooms. But unfortunately in that 2nd room, there were 2 cockroaches running around. Pretty little, not that little, German cockroaches. So when you find cockroaches in a hotel, the best modus operandi is to get a refund and leave that hotel if possible. But the problem is it's not really possible right now because it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving and the hotels in the area are very full and very expensive. But I have to say, when I saw the 2 cockroaches, I contacted the front desk immediately and the receptionist was very helpful in sending the maintenance man up to do some spraying and checking of the room. Both of them informed me that they were not aware of any cockroach infestation in the hotel, so it could be that they were just stragglers that had arrived with some other travelers and stayed in the room, though it's kind of unlikely. If you're familiar with how cockroaches work, yeah, I lived 3 years in New York, I'm pretty familiar. They're usually in the whole building. But again, the customer service here has been very reasonable. They're gonna refund me everything that I paid for this stay, so there is that. But really, any of these major brands, Marriott, Hyatt, whatever else it might be, they should not have cockroaches in their hotel. That's just not acceptable. So since I don't have that much of a choice, I'll be giving this 3rd room a try and keeping my eyes open for cockroaches. If there is one, I'm just gonna have to splurge and stay at a different hotel. Hopefully I won't see any more cockroaches and I can have a good night's sleep here. But I can already hear that this room is not as quiet as the 2nd one, so that seems a little bit unlikely. But otherwise, we'll have to examine their breakfast in the morning. So, no cockroaches and a pretty decent place to sleep. Let's go see what they've got for breakfast over here. So here we are, back down in the morning break section. And you've got 3 waffle makers, 2 toasters, and there's some bagels, wheat bread, and what do they call those? Muffins, English muffins. Plus there's gravy and biscuits, and mystery sausage patty, and mystery eggs. That's the breakfast over here at this TownPlace Suites. Oof, and I nearly missed. There are wheat tortillas. Corn tortillas, please. But they do have coffee. Have to unwrap the cup here. Individually wrapped cups. One of the most unnecessary things you can ever see anywhere. The coffee smells kind of like Starbucks. Let's see, this isn't the most appetizing looking breakfast so far, but I'm gonna try a little bit of most of it at least. And I noticed there's some oatmeal, so that actually seems like it might be the best choice because they have all of these toppings. And in the general trend over at these affordable American hotel breakfasts is unhealthy cereals, unhealthy sweets. I think I'm gonna eat some unhealthy sweets. But seriously, if I were to eat hotel breakfast at any of these hotels every day for like a month, there'd be a high chance that I'd develop diabetes. So really none of the hotel breakfasts we looked at could be described as healthy or a great breakfast, but some were definitely better than the others. And this one's just a little bit lacking for me, I don't know. Everything just has kind of that from a plastic bag or freezer taste to it, but hey, it is free breakfast, so there's that. So let's head over to do a little recap and complete our final comparison. After staying at all 4 of these hotel chains across different parts of the US, I was reminded of exactly what sums up most of my hotel experiences in this country. US American hotels are kind of like a game of roulette. Sometimes you win big, other times you get roaches, pink waffles, or blinking lights that won't let you sleep. So let's break it down and score each hotel using the 5 categories that matter most when you're actually staying somewhere, not just browsing pretty stock photos online. In this order, we'll look at breakfast, room and facilities, service, comfort, and value. Let's start with the IHG property I stayed at in Boston, the Holiday Inn Express. The breakfast wasn't bad in comparison to other mid-tier options in the US, but quality of some of the food was not great. That's a 7 out of 10 for breakfast. And then when it comes to room and facilities, there was both a pool and a gym. Things looked pretty nice overall, and the hotel mostly felt clean. Blinking lights in a hotel room are never good, but it was really the sound issues that ensured I would not sleep well. I'm pretty sure this was the newest hotel out of the 4 I stayed at, but new doesn't necessarily mean better. It felt kind of like the building was just thrown up quick without considering the basics to comfort. That's a 5 out of 10 for room and facilities. And then when it came to service, my first interaction at checking in was pretty nice, and the breakfast staff were also kind. But during checkout, the serious issues I encountered were not addressed, and I got hung up on in the middle of the night. But even worse is that those issues remain unresolved to this day. Now months later, I still haven't received any response after reaching out to the hotel. Someone might accidentally hang up a phone or be preoccupied with something when checking guests out. But never even getting back to someone who encountered serious issues while staying at your hotel means that there's probably a larger issue with service here. That's a 2 out of 10 for service, only because I had a few positive interactions at the hotel. Then in terms of comfort, the bed itself was fine, and it's nice to have 2 different kinds of pillows. But the biggest factor going into comfort is always the ability to sleep at a hotel. And at this Holiday Inn, there's just too much going against you to get a good night's sleep. There's the sound from other rooms, from the hallway, and from slamming doors, blinking lights, the preset alarm clock, and on top of that, the room felt a little tight for the US. That's a 2 out of 10 for comfort just because the bed itself was pretty okay. And finally, in terms of value, I paid 31,000 IHG points to stay here. It wasn't exactly a good deal, but it was on a weekend day, and for Boston, that was one of the cheaper options available without going to a cheap motel. For value, this Holiday Inn Express gets a 5 out of 10. All that said, my issues still haven't even been recognized. If this had happened at any of the other chains in this video, I'm confident the noise problem would have been solved with a quick phone call. This place may have cost less than others in the area, but I paid much more than the difference in lost sleep. All in all, this IHG hotel gets a 21 out of 50. And moving on to the Hyatt place in Houston, their breakfast was solid. The quality was just a little higher than average for a mid-tier US hotel. They definitely could have set out a few healthy options without too much extra effort, some grilled vegetables or something simple, but it was definitely satisfactory, and for breakfast, the Hyatt place gets 9 out of 10. Then when it comes to room and facilities, the room was nice to stay in, and the bed was comfortable. To some degree, there was pretty good sound isolation in the room. You definitely couldn't hear your neighbors there. But some of the outside sounds did make it through the unopenable windows. The building itself was just a little strange, but again, hotels in the US are weird, what can I say? Overall, this one gets a 9 out of 10, losing a point due to the small sound isolation issue. Then for service, things were decent. The person checking me in seemed a little bit confused about where I should park in the area, and generally the vibes seemed to be don't bother anyone at the hotel for anything unless you really need to. I guess you could say the staff I interacted with didn't go out of their way for you, and seemed to kind of avoid interactions altogether. But they'll definitely respond to you if you need something. That's a 7 out of 10 for service. In terms of comfort, the bed was comfortable, close enough to quiet for me with my earplugs, and the room had a good layout. Not really any huge complaints there. 9 out of 10 for comfort. And in terms of value, this place was 10 out of 10. One of the absolute best deals I've had in the US. I really hope Hyatt doesn't get any ideas and take away these affordable redemptions because the value is great. Even if you were to buy the points to stay here, you'd still be paying under $100 US, which is less than I could find for the cash rates on any night. So all in all, this Hyatt place gets 44 out of 50. But then there was the Hampton Inn by Hilton. The breakfast was pink. It's nice that they have breakfast, I guess, but the quality was pretty low. A little lower feeling than the Holiday Inn Express even. I feel like investing in pink sparkles and cups with silly prints on them demonstrated some kind of misalignment of priorities. I mean, that stuff has to cost a lot of money, right? You could probably invest less and improve the quality of the food while giving a few healthy options. Especially given that Hampton by Hiltons are just so much better in other countries, not to mention they're usually cheaper. So breakfast gets a 4 out of 10. It could be worse, but it could also be so much better. In terms of the room and facilities, there's not so much to say here, which is probably a good thing. The pool music is seriously loud sometimes, but they cut it off once it gets late, and it is in Florida. I'm sure if I wanted, I could have just changed rooms without issue. The room itself had a little bit more of an old school feeling, but it was clean, spacious, and mostly pretty functional. That's a 9 out of 10. Then when it comes to service, the vibe here was so different from the other hotels. The staff were nice, happy to chat with you or help if needed, and they just gave the impression of confidence in their service that I usually don't get at mid-tier hotels in the US. There's just nothing bad to say here, and it's a 10 out of 10. Then as for comfort, it wasn't quite 100% perfect, but still solid, and I slept well there. Mainly the building did have some sound isolation issues, but it wasn't nearly as noticeable as at the Holiday Inn Express by IHG or the TownPlace Suites by Marriott. Overall, the spaciousness was nice, and it gets an 8 out of 10 for comfort. And then in terms of value, I paid 31,000 Hilton Honors points to stay here. It wasn't my best Hilton redemption ever, but for being on the beach in Florida, it was pretty solid value. It gets an 8 out of 10. And in total, this Hampton Inn gets 40 out of 50. I'd stay there again, and once Paris Hilton sees this, I'll eat breakfast there again too. And our last hotel was the TownPlace Suites by Marriott over in Titusville. The breakfast wasn't great. They did have oatmeal with more healthy toppings than the other hotels, but outside of that and the coffee, the quality was just very low. Even a little lower than the Hampton Inn. Plus, there was nothing like the pink waffles to make you think they might be able to do it better if they just redistribute funds and get something a little bit more edible. For breakfast, this one gets a 3 out of 10. Mostly for the coffee. Then the room? Well, which room, right? One wasn't clean, another had cockroaches, and there were noise issues throughout the hotel. Plus, beyond what I got on camera that you'd actually want to see, the third room had a toilet issue. As in, the toilet would stop flushing for 30 minutes or an hour at a time. It doesn't make a big difference if the bed is decent or there's a work desk when you've got these kinds of issues. But outside of the room, the pool, lobby, and gym seem solid and maintained enough when passing by. That's a 2 out of 10 for room and facilities. Then when it comes to service, well, the front desk person was nice and answered the phone. But housekeeping ties into service to some degree too, and obviously something wasn't going right there. I had also been promised a full refund, but after a few weeks of not receiving it, I reached out and it turned out there was some confusion. After some back and forth, I was offered compensation of more than I paid in points, and the interaction was quick and kind. I really have no clue if other guests often experience the same thing or not, but the staff I interacted with were responsive. That's an 8 out of 10 for service. And when it comes to comfort, despite all of the issues, I got a good night's sleep somehow. The whole vibe of the room wasn't exactly geared towards comfort though. And after encountering those kinds of problems, it's hard to be truly comfortable at a hotel. That's an 8 out of 10 for comfort. And then for value, I paid 21,000 Marriott Bonvoy points for the night. Not bad, but not as good of a deal as the Hyatt place and definitely worse value than the Hampton Inn. That's a 7 out of 10 for value. And all in all, the TownPlace Suites gets 28 out of 50. So after 4 nights in 4 different hotel chains, here's how it all stacked up. The Hyatt place easily took the top spot. Great value, a solid breakfast, and a pretty cozy room. Then the Hilton comes in second. It wasn't perfect, but the staff made up for the pink waffles. Barely. Marriott? Well, I got some sleep, but only after I switched rooms twice and negotiated for compensation. Not exactly what you want to do on a vacation. And then there's the Holiday Inn Express. I've had worse nights, but not many. If you're at all sensitive to anything while sleeping, I can't recommend that place. Every hotel had some quirks. This is the US after all. But what surprised me most is just how inconsistent mid-range hotel chains can be. So hopefully this helps you choose the right brand the next time you're traveling through the US. If you've had a totally different experience at any of these chains or even a weirder one, let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful or just mildly entertaining, make sure to give it a like and subscribe with alerts on for more honest travel videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.